Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Chester. You guys know what I like to do on my show. Say it with me. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And that's what we want to do today, get you fired up about my guest. I'll be spending time today with Don Holman, and we'll be talking about his book, Mutiny on the Omaha. So go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Don. Thank you so much for joining me here today on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
It's great to be here.
Absolutely glad to have you. Now, as is tradition here, we always give our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves to perhaps those few folks out there that may be unfamiliar with you or your work. So first question for you is, tell us a little bit about yourself. What makes you, you?
Well, everybody is a composite of their background. I grew up in a small town, Christian home. Worked all my life, worked on farms, worked remodeling, worked my way through school. So I'm just a workaholic, I guess.
Now, being an author, is that something that you've always wanted to do, or did you find that this was an opportunity that life presented?
Well, I grew up reading the American classics about Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett and the presidents and all their stories, and the ability to tell a good story, to enjoy a story, and it just inspired me. I wanted to write since about age 13 or so, and I shortly after started making notes for a novel. I can't say that that's actually, I'm working on it on my computer right now, many years later. It's a story. It's kind of the universal.
Right. Now let me ask you about the title of your book, Mutiny on the Omaha. How did you come about the title? Did you notice if the title came to you first? Did it develop out of your writing? How did you come about the title?
Well, I didn't know what to call the darn book. But the main part of the story, the latter part of the story, was about he was sent to solve a problem undercover on a heavy cruiser type spaceship, a very large spaceship, and there had been all kinds of rumors. So he was sent to see what was actually going on, and it turned out that a mutiny was brewing. So the name became Mutiny on the Omaha, the name of the ship.
I love it. I love it. Now, when it comes to the ideal reader, and I always ask it this way, would your book be appropriate for someone at the age of high school, between the ages of 14 and 18, or would college age and older be more appropriate? Do they need a little bit more life experience to be able to follow along?
Well, I think 14 might be slightly young. There's one minor little incident that, you might want to wait a year or two. But nowadays, with what they see on TV, I think 14-year-olds could handle it just fine. And it's designed to be a fun book, something that involves problem solving, how to persist and go ahead in the face of diversity.
Right. Gotcha. Absolutely. So yeah, depending on the 14-year-old, they may be able to handle it. I love it. Now, when it comes to the proper way to read your book, many times an author will lay it out for us in that we should read chapter 1 before reading chapter 2. Others will kind of allow it to be reader's choice in that simply read the book from cover to cover, start where you may, end where you might. With that being said, is there a right way or a more correct way to read your book?
Well, normally I think the reader would enjoy it the most by starting at the beginning, getting to know the character, and then following him through, basically the book covers a dozen years or more. So it starts out as a high school student, newly graduated, joins the military because there's a war. And it just goes on from there. His experiences at classes.
Right.
It's mostly pretty low-key stuff. I mean...
Right. Now... Now, when it comes to choosing your genre, you chose to write this from the perspective of science fiction. Why was it important to write this book from the perspective of science fiction?
Well, I'm an engineer by profession. I'm a bookworm by my whole life. I'm also learning disabled. I didn't know that until my 50s, and it probably has greatly affected my life and how I write, because I have trouble learning things. So I have to go over it and over it, and as I learn, I try to help others. I have been a teacher. I've taught many classes, both in church, at my work. I've been teaching adults as well as children. And teaching, I love teaching. And I try to put into my stories things that will help people learn. Learn about science, learn about life, learn about how to solve problems. And also to try to entertain them. That's a tall order, and I'm not quite sure always that I accomplish what I set out to do, but that's what I try to do.
Now, without giving it all away, and I always give this disclaimer, if you want to know how the story ends, please purchase a copy of the book. Now, with that being said, I want to ask you, can you tell us a little bit about the main character of the book, and why was it important that they have that particular personality?
Well, I think you'll find that most authors base their characters somewhat on themselves, and either how they are or how they wish they were. This is somewhat that way. It is somewhat based around me and my life, very loosely, obviously, because I don't live 400 or 500 years in the future. I don't know exactly what the tech will be then, but science fiction was chosen because it is such a very flexible and forgiving genre. I propose that people leave Earth and sped to the stars, and once in the stars, you're obviously going to have a very wide variety of technology and characters and backgrounds and environments. And I take advantage of that flexibility to present problems in various ways. The ways that I think would normally be encountered because of the environment that they're in. And so it gives a great deal of scope and fun to the book.
Now, the fact that you have chosen to write in science fiction, I absolutely love it because it allows our imagination, from a reader's perspective, it allows our imagination to go along on the journey with you as the author. And you can take us on those various twists and turns, those ups and downs, and make it as, a thriller or suspenseful or, as happy or sad or whatever emotion we need to experience along on that fanciful journey that we're going to go on with you. With that being said, how did you determine when there should be a twist or a turn, a zig or a zag? How did you come up with the theory or the process of writing from that perspective?
The process is just to follow life. Life is filled with problems, filled with opportunities. It is more how you address the opportunity than what the opportunity or problem is. If you address it in a way that is confrontational, then you get conflict. I am not a conflict type person. I try to show how to solve problems without with the minimum of conflict. Without any conflict, it's boring. But with the minimum of conflict, how do you avoid the worst outcome and why that is the best way? I mean, everybody has conflicts. Without conflict, there's no story. But how you deal with the conflict can be a very rewarding story. And if you can deal with it well, that shows that you're doing well and you're more likely to succeed.
I like that. I like that answer. Now, there's a lot of science fiction books out there, so I know that someone is saying, but what makes your book different? What makes your book unique? So let me ask that question for the person who's wondering. Don, what makes your book a little different, a little unique from some of the other sci-fi books that are out there?
Excellent question, and I love the answer. The answer is nothing in my books is razzle-dazzle. Everything I have can be traced back to things we know right now. There's been research going on for years on fusion power. You know, hydrogen plus hydrogen equals helium plus an extra lot of energy. Well, I use that research and some of the things that have been learned there to create a drive for the ships that is extremely powerful, much more powerful than anything we are using today. Then, to have science fiction, you have to go to other planets. And how do you get there? You have to have a faster than light drive. Now, if you look at Star Wars or Star Trek, they really can't explain the mathematics of it. I can take and explain to a 5-year-old or a 5th grader, whatever you want, how and why this is at least a pseudo-scientific. I mean, I'm sure I get lots of arguments from physicists, but it's a way I can show them how to use what we know now to feasibly, if not totally accurately, get faster than light travel. So everything I do is based on sound science and engineering, as I understand it.
And I'm pretty sure that for the people that those bits and pieces matter to, that they appreciate the fact that you've done the research, that you've made sure that the due diligence was done there to make sure that it was proper and true. So on behalf of those folks, thank you for taking that extra step to make sure that it was what it needed to be there. Now, I want to ask the next question, and we have about a minute left in this segment, but I want to ask nonetheless, if there's one thing that you want to make sure that the readers understand about your book. Is there any particular message that you want to make sure that they glean from this book?
Well, actually, I would like people that read my books to understand better the possibilities of science, its value, but also the value of persistence and honesty and hard work. Every character, the problems that they meet, they don't solve them easily. They have to work at it. It takes time. I mean, it's not instant gratification. Life is not instant gratification. If you're looking for that, you're going to have to be a failure in life. If you persist and do it step by step, you're probably going to be okay.
Well, it is time for us to go to break, but before we do, can you remind everyone, please, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And, of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
Okay, the book is called Mutiny on the Omaha, and there's a website, mutinyontheomaha.com. It is also on Amazon and the publisher, which is Page Turner Press and Media. So it's available on all those.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester. My guest today is Don Holman, and we're talking about his book, Mutiny on the Omaha. Now, Don, my next question for you is that you present Mutiny on the Omaha as part of a future history. How did you, or why was it important for you to take that particular perspective?
Nothing happens in isolation. Events follow from previous events. I propose that at one time, somewhere in the future, technology allows people to start traveling between stars. If it becomes very inexpensive to do so, relatively speaking, then there's apt to be a lot of people will travel. And what will that mean in the future? Well, I propose that at some point there's going to be a big disagreement, and there's apt to be a war. And this book follows the start of that war. It goes a little bit into the reasons for it, but mostly it follows the main character as he learns and prepares and becomes proficient in his profession. He is an engineering or a computer geek. He understands the technology of physics and spaceships, and he goes out and he learns, and he's given opportunities. He's an idea person, problem-solving person, kind of like I think I am. And he starts coming up with solutions, and because he comes up with them, he is sometimes given the opportunity to develop them. And that's kind of the story. And it goes on. This is the first of a multi-book series that I've written and that I'm trying to get published. So hopefully we'll have several more to follow within the next couple of years.
Now you touched on something in the last segment, and I wanted to give you a little bit more time to be able to expound on that, and that is about the possibility of light travel. Some people say it is possible to travel faster than light. Some people say it's only plausible. How do you feel about that, or how do you address that issue in your book?
Well, if you can remember back to high school, everybody was told about E equals mc squared, Einstein's famous relativity equation. And they were told that the c in the equation, is the speed of light and that it is a constant. Well, a year or two later, they came and told you about black holes. And they said the gravity is so great that light can't leave. Well, gee, hey teacher, you told us that light was a constant. How come now you're saying that it can't leave? If it was a constant, it was a constant. So there are some things that we learn that we don't really internalize. It took me a while to twig to this. But if the speed of light can change because of gravity, maybe if you totally exclude all influence of gravity, does it make sense that the speed of light goes more or less infinite? If that is the case, then that is an opportunity to build something by excluding the force of gravity some way to have faster than light travel.
You know, I love talking with all of the authors that I get to talk to because we find and discover so many different ways of thinking about things simply because we're in conversation with another person. I find that so many times we end up in clusters of such like-thinking people that there's no room for new interpretation or understanding or for new ideas to come through. So I think that it's really nice that you are introducing that to someone else and help them ponder and go, you know what? There's a whole new generation that's being born every day. So you never know what they are going to be able to create, and perhaps a book of science fiction can help spur them to take the dream and take it even bigger. So I love it. I love it. Now, I want to shift gears just a little bit, and I try to do this with all of the authors that I spend time with, and that is ask questions on behalf of our aspiring authors. They love that I do this, and shout out to all of our aspiring authors. Thank you for emailing me. I appreciate that. And asking questions of successful authors of what they have done. With that being said, one question I try to ask consistently is about how you choose to publish your books. Every author has to decide, am I going to self-publish? Am I going to use professional services? Or am I going to pitch my book to the big boys? Now, I'm just talking about this particular book here, Mutiny on the Omaha. How did you determine which way you would publish this book?
Well, it was fairly simple. I get lots of emails about lots of things, and so I got an email and a phone call from this publisher. They presented themselves as the best. I'm not sure I agree with that, but they, after a lot of work on both our parts, published the book. I would love, and I am much better at solving problems than I am at approaching people and selling myself. I mean, once I'm talking to somebody, I'm fine, but I'm not good at going out and doing it. So, because they came to me, I went with them. And now, with the book and with the other books that I've written that I'm trying to get into shape to publish, I think it's a great story. I think it is a fun series. Eventually, aliens arrive, and very dangerous aliens, and I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in the future.
Right. Now, when it comes to making sure that your dream about how you want to present the book is actually met, during that editing process, did you find that to be something that was easy? Was it difficult? Many times writers will say the writing part was the easy part. It was really determining what we would cut out or edit out, or what parts needed to be moved perhaps from chapter 2 to chapter 4. How did the editing process go for you?
The writing part was easy. The story just seems to come to me. I think I'm blessed that way. The editing part, that's difficult. I tend to write like an engineer, since I am one. And, I love details. And most people don't go for details the way I do. I read to learn. So there's a lot of details, and it's a hard task to cut out the details that are unnecessary for the story, or that I consider unnecessary. I still leave in stuff that a lot of people say, oh, you don't need that, cut it out. But it is, as a series of stories, and as to get people interested in the possibilities of science and some of the things in science. Science is fascinating. I have a lot of details in there that most people would say, you may not need. But I want them in there to educate and entertain and inform people as to give the background and the feeling for what is possible, what can and have people done.
Absolutely. Sometimes that additional secret ingredient is what makes the sauce amazing. It makes the iced tea delicious. So I can definitely understand what you mean there. Now, when it comes to the emotional attachment, and I like asking this question because I never know what the answer is going to be, and that is you have gone through all of the hard work. You have written the book, edited the book, chosen your cover, selected your publisher, and you are now holding copy number 1, quote unquote, fresh out the presses. How does it feel to have book number 1 in your hands?
It wants to make me get number books 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 out there.
So it just made you feel determined then?
Determined. Number 1 is a big hurdle. To actually get something so that somebody can read it and say, I like it, I don't like it, it's horrible, it's great, whatever. I don't care. At least it's something out there. And I think it's good. If other people agree, they'll read it. And that is a great assistance to me to be encouraged to continue.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now, speaking of the future, we hear that you want to have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more books out there. I love it. I love it. With that being said, does that mean that you are ever writing for someone who also wants to not just stop at book number 3, but they want to have a multi-volume series, a multi-book series? Are you ever thinking, are you always adding to book number next?
Pretty much. I have 7 books that are basically in the pre-final draft. And I've got 2 books that are part done. One needs to be reorganized and finished. The other one it's about a quarter done, and I need to finish doing it. And it takes a lot of time.
Well, Don, we are out of time, and thank you so much for coming on and not only sharing about your book, but inspiring the next group of writers out there to step out into their calling, into their purpose, and stepping out into their new books as well. Thank you so much for coming on and spending time with us here today. Now, before I let you go, can you remind everyone, please, one last time, what is the title of this book, where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
Mutiny on the Omaha. MutinyOnTheOmaha.com. Also on Amazon and at Page Turner Press and Media.
Thank you again for being a guest on the show. And listeners, thank you for being on here as well. We love spending time with you each and every day. So thank you for tuning in and listening. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.